Okay, Rabbi, good evening. We're going to talk about the upcoming holiday, Shavuot. We already talked about it before a little bit, but now we're going to discuss one of the most important elements of Shavuot, which is what? That the custom is on the first night of Shavuot. We have 2 nights because in the diaspora we do 2 days of holiday. In Israel, they only do one. You know that, right? That's the way it is. So, nevertheless, the first night, which is the real holiday, the second one is just rabbinical. The first one is from the Torah. So what we do is that we stay up all night and we study Torah all night until the morning. This is the custom, right? Where does this custom come from? It comes from the Zohar Kadosh. It says over there, Parshat Emor, in the Zohar Kadosh, also in the Hakdama, in the introduction to the Zohar, it says over there that a person who does this, first of all, was the custom of the pious Jews, the pious rabbis, to stay up all night that night, and they used to study Torah until the morning, right? What's the reason why they do that, by the way? There's a special tikkun, there's a special rectification that they do. What's the rectification? We're talking about the fact that that night on Shavuot, where the Jews received the Torah, the Jews were like kind of queasy, you know? You know what it means to be queasy, Mark?
Well,
Like, dazed and confused?
you hear the Yazan in the morning, right?
Dazed and confused. Right? Yeah, the truth is they were, yeah, they were, yeah. Sure, that's true, right?
That time period, there was polytheism.
There, you're absolutely right. It was rampant. Right? It was all over the world, yeah. No question about it, right?
So they, comes Moses with Torah.
Right. So now what happens is like this, right?
Stick to your own
that
kind, baby.
Moshe Rabbeinu brings them, he took them out from Egypt when? On Pesach, right?
Yeah.
That's when they left Egypt. That's why we come right Pesach, leaving Mitzrayim. So what happened was, right, that now after 50 days, after they left Mitzrayim, they walked all that distance, and they came to Mount Sinai, Har Sinai. Right? When did they arrive there? It was Rosh Chodesh Sivan, which was 2 days ago. Right? That's when they arrived. And they stayed there until the 6th of Sivan, when they actually received the Torah. That's what happened.
And that was in Saudi Arabia.
No, actually, this is in Egypt, right? You know where that is? It's in the Sinai Peninsula.
Okay. Well,
you know where that is? Yeah, that's Egypt, right?
Gulf of Aqaba.
Yeah, exactly. It's close to Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia is on the other side of the Gulf. You understand? That's it. That's the idea. Yeah. Very close. It's a walking distance, You can take a taxi. You can take a taxi over there. If they let you through. Whatever. So, right. By the way, it's also close to Eilat. You know Eilat, right? Eilat is also right there in that area. Beautiful, beautiful town.
Right?
Gorgeous town. Breathtaking. Beautiful vacation place, but very hot over there, right? The sun is blaring on you like nobody's business, Even worse than Florida, like
for $2.
Florida has nothing to what happens over there. The sun is like unbelievable. So anyway, right, getting back to what we said, they received the Torah on the 6th of Sivan, which is coming up now after Shabbat, right? So what happened was that night where they were supposed to receive the Torah, what happened? You know what happened, right? Anticlimax. You know what's anticlimax?
No.
They fell asleep.
Oh.
Instead of being excited, we're going to receive the Torah, yay, waving banners, Israeli flags.
Is that what the golden town?
This was after that. A little bit after, right after that.
They woke up.
Very close proximity, by the way, in terms of the timeline. Yeah, very close, right after that. I'm sorry?
They were still polytheists.
Yeah, they want to go back to their own ways. That's exactly it. That's a very, very smart lady, this lady. She knows very smart. Okay, she knows a lot more than you think. Okay, that's what I figure. Okay, very good. Okay, God bless you. So anyway, right, as we said, now all of a sudden they're not responding. Like a person, you hit him on the head. Hello, wake up, hello. Like that. That's how they were. You understand? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in order to wake them up, right? What did he do? What was the trick that he pulled? You know what he pulled? He had his own alarm clock. What is the alarm clock of God? How does that sound like?
It's a shadow on the thing.
Thunder, boo, boo, lightning, bach, bach, fire, shofarot, the voices of the shofar. Yeah, this Hashem, he himself, he did this. Unbelievable, right?
Yeah, it had a little small sundial on his wrist.
That's the way it was. There's fire and brimstone, and like the whole mountain was quaking with fire. It was a total, inferno, inferno. That's what it was. It was a Torah inferno. That's what it was. You understand?
Like
So, Kadosh Baruch Hu said, "Hey, wake up, guys! Come on, I'm waiting for you. Come and receive the Torah already. What are you gonna make me wait all night? What the?"
Sounds like my grandmother waking me up to go to Forest Hills High School.
You understand? So, and all of a sudden, right? They hear the noises on outside of their tents. They get up like this. Yeah, they go. Oh yeah. Oh, what happened? Oh yeah, God is giving us a Torah. Oh, He's giving a Torah. Oh, okay, I'll get dressed. Putting on his pants. Socks. There's shoes. All of a sudden, running here, running there. So they all come. Late. Show up late. Can you imagine? Like they missed the what was that called in high school? That the first session that they used to have. What was that called? Whatever it was called, right?
Gym?
Right, homeroom. Right, they missed homeroom. They missed homeroom. They came late. All of a sudden they show up. They run in. Okay, they're here. That's the way it happened, man. So this was disrespect. You know what I mean?
To God.
You're right, exactly. You don't treat God like that.
But
You know what I mean?
God was.
Ah.
They
Yeah, they didn't know. Yeah, you're right. They weren't. Yeah, exactly. They were not into it yet. They were not solidified yet. They were still like very, cheesy, watery. That's the idea. Very slack. We call it in Yiddish schwach. They were very schwach, very flimsy. Spineless jellyfish. That's what they were. That's true. But Kadosh Baruch Hu woke them up. He said, listen, but this was disrespect, So they say in order to metaken, to rectify this sin, like it's not really a sin, but it was like misbehavior, Demeanor. It was a misdemeanor, right? Some kind of misdemeanor that we did. So therefore, in order to correct the misdemeanor, every night now, right on Shavuot, we have to make this tikkun of what? Of coming all night and studying Torah. Not being lazy, and being slack. I want to go to sleep. My pillow, it's kind of, let me sleep a little bit. This is not the time to sleep. This time.
You have sleep apnea.
The over's off.
Yeah, it's true. There's all kinds of things. So I want to tell you one thing, right? Number one, first of all, this is not obligation, halakhically speaking, to do this, stay up all night. You hear that, Mark? Nobody's obligated to do that. But it's a very good custom. It's a good segula.
You're going to be doing it?
We try to do it always, we always try. We give it our best shot.
During
That's
your
what we
break-
do.
During your breaks,
Yeah.
if you decide to do it, I'll send you some videos.
Got some silly Simon.
So, what's the story, right? The story is like this: that a person has to come all night and learn Torah, and then in the morning we pray very early. Netzachama. You know what Netzachama means? That's during sunrise. We start the minyan very early, right? That's the earliest that a person can pray. Shachrit.
Azan.
Huh?
The sound of the azan.
Oh, whatever that is. What
First
is
thing
that?
in the morning.
What is that?
The Muslim thing.
That. Lehavdil, right? Right? Lehavdil.
Obama talked about that.
Let him keep talking.
The beautiful sound of the azan.
Nobody's listening anyway. So, right, as we said, what happens is now that we're going to pray very early in the morning. We're going to start Shachrit. You know what time? Probably around 4:30 in the morning. We're going to start already Shachrit. Praying. Putting on talit. No tefillin, right? There's no tefillin because it's a holiday. Remember that, David. Don't forget.
Yeah.
Holidays, we don't put tefillin.
How many-
Sunday, Monday, not tefillin.
Sunday, Monday?
Sunday, Monday. No,
Okay.
don't forget that.
So tomorrow. is
Tomorrow
not-
you put, but yeah. Then 3 days you're off, right? Play hooky, Not tefillin on those days.
I have no tefillin. I don't have to worry about it.
We gotta get you something, right? We
I stole it
gotta.
on my bar mitzvah.
we gotta-
I stole my talis and my tefillin.
You're gonna have to sell your some of your instruments. Maybe the harmonica. You have to sell.
Okay, so Mark, write all this down. No pork. Gotta get a filling. Okay, what else?
No
I have to
sex
work
until
on
marriage.
Saturday. I have to work Saturday.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, guys. So you got the idea, right?
Yes.
So we start 4:30 in the morning, and right when the sun is coming up, which is about 5:25, we start the Amidah, the silent prayer. That's the perfect time. If a person prays like that, his prayer is considered to be like perfecto. That's the number one way to pray.
This is applicable to women and men.
I'm going to talk about that just in a second, right? Regarding women, what the women do. It's a very important question what you're asking, very important, and also it's pertinent to you, obviously, right? It's a personal question as well. But we have to know. I would have discussed it even if you weren't here, because this is for all women have to know. We're going on air, right? So we have there are people listening. So the idea is like this, right? Number one, the men. We're talking first about the men, right? The men, that's what they do. And then after that, they say Shachrit, they say Kriyat Torah, they read the Torah, and then they say Musaf. They do it pretty fast. By 7 o'clock, they're done. Right? So then they go home, they go sleep, they do some kiddush, they make a kiddush, a little bit something, have some dairy food. It's custom to have dairy food on Shavuot. So I ordered chinkali and khachavuri, mishalva from Shalva.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cheese.
We're gonna eat that here now.
Not now, but during the holiday. That's the idea, right?
Oh.
Sunday and Monday. That's where we're gonna have that stuff, right? That's the idea.
I'm assuming that,
Yes, my dear.
I'm assuming Shalva will make it for you, because I've been waiting.
Yeah, we were.
Was it Sunday night and Monday?
So it's Saturday night and Sunday night and Monday.
Maybe.
That's the idea. You don't have to come here. You can, you can do it elsewhere as well. The point is, to do it right. You gotta do it, whatever. But you can also go to your local shul. The local shtiblach you can go to.
So wait a second, I can come
No work on that day.
Saturday night.
Huh?
I come here Saturday night.
Yeah, Saturday night is when they do the study session, right? They do
What
all
time?
night. They start around, let's say, about 10:30, and then they go from there until
Midnight.
yes, and they go till like about 4:30 in the morning. That's the idea, right? They have refreshments, they have drinks, cake, everything.
Are
The
you
whole
coming?
coffee, tea. I'll be somewhere. I don't know if I'll be here, but I'll be somewhere, trying to study Torah. If you want me to come, I can, I can
Make
arrange
an
something.
arrangement.
We can arrange something. Yeah. No
We're gonna
problem.
have
If you guys let me know that you want to do something, if you want to do a class or something, we can do it. No problem.
No marijuana, I'll put you to sleep.
No marijuana.
So there's Shavuot Tov, and then what's the other holiday that you were saying, talking about?
I'm sorry?
Shavuot Tov, and then what's the other holiday? I'm not familiar with.
Shavuot is the holiday that we're talking about now. That's the only holiday we're talking about now. That's
There's
it.
another holiday you mentioned. There's another thing you mentioned.
Maybe. What did I mention? I don't recall right now. I'll play the video and I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So Shavuot Tov is just the receiving.
Not Shavuot Tov, Shavuot. Shavuot is the name of the holiday, right?
That's when we receive the Torah.
Yes.
Shavuos.
And
Yes.
we're celebrating our receival of the Torah.
Right. Reception.
That's why we eat dairy. We don't eat meat because meat is like.
The reason we eat dairy, well, we already discussed that in the other classes. You can see it on Facebook. You have Facebook? You can see it over there. Or YouTube. You can also use in YouTube. Our classes are recorded over there.
True.
So you can see them over there. We discussed already why we do that. You guys remember? We talked about that? Whatever.
It's
Okay.
life. It's milk of life.
Milk of life. I like that. Okay, that's
I
good.
mean, like, when a baby is born, it's eating its mom's milk.
Okay, and therefore,
And that's why it's like starting life. I don't know, something like that.
okay, it sounds good to me. Anyway, right, as we said, so,
Nurture.
okay, nurture.
Life nurture.
Sounds good. Sounds nice. So anyway, Rabatai, this is the idea, right? So a person has to know that in the Zohar Kadosh, it talks about how praiseworthy this custom is to learn Torah all that night. Regarding the women, by the way, I want to mention that women are not a part of this custom. Really, the truth is, right? They don't really have to stay up all night. They can sleep
We cook
with your pillow, right? Exactly. You guys are busy doing the housework and the cooking and all kinds of stuff like that. So you guys are not gals. Excuse me. I'm sorry, not you guys. You gals are not responsible for these kind of things, right? It's really the truth is it says in Ben Ish Chai in the Rabbi Alim, the book of Ben, he writes over there that this is according to the Kabbalah, the women are not a part of this mitzvah. They're not really right. So they don't have to worry about that.
Like 2 mitzvahs that we have to do. All the other mitzvahs is for the man.
Yeah, actually, this discussion that you're making now, I had this with David's mother about 30 years ago. I don't know if David remembers this, right? David's mom. I was over his house and we discussed this issue, right? So the truth is, right, that at that time I gave them a very brief answer and it wasn't maybe 100% accurate. But the point is that, but when they say women have 2 special mitzvot, what that means is that mitzvah is only for them and not for the men. There's something special that they have only for them. It doesn't apply to the men.
Which are what if you know?
Like one of them is lighting candles.
Yeah.
That's one of the mitzvot.
Both could light
Right?
candles on Friday, though.
I'm sorry.
Both could light candles.
If you have a
on Friday.
woman in the house, she should be the one who lights.
Right, but if not, you could light candles.
Then you have to light yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's no woman in the house,
What else?
I'm sorry.
Shabbos candles.
What's the other one? Lighting candles?
And also family purity, right? That means going to the mikveh, all these things, right? That is the
Yeah.
mitzvah of being pure. Why is that? Because when a woman keeps purity, so then what happens is, right, that the whole family stays pure. The root of the purity of the family comes from the woman. The woman is the one who, what does that mean? She's the one who radiates the purity to the whole family. She's the one who influences everybody. the woman is the one who makes everybody what they are. The husband comes out like her, the children come out like her. She's like the central. She's the pillar of the family. That's what she is, the woman. Judaism, that's the way it is.
But
It's true.
I think it's just in general, the woman is pretty much the head, the neck.
Yeah. It's That's absolutely.
It's according to the woman.
I want to tell you another thing, by the way. I want to give you girls some praise. I want to praise you, girls. And since we have a girl here, I want to give you some praise. You know what it says, right, in the Midrash about the women? That the truth is, right, that you talked about the issue of the golden calf, and there was also another sin that they did in the desert, which was that, the spies, they went and they said Lashon Hara about Eretz Israel. They said it was bad. It was a bad place to live. They said said derogatory speech about Eretz Israel, about land of Israel. They said it was bad. We shouldn't go there. It's dangerous. All kinds of things like this. So they say, right, that these two sins that were done in the Jewish people, the women did not participate in these two sins. They stayed out of it, So they were better than us. Can you imagine? That's the way it was.
Where was the water
Yeah.
strife? Where the rock was split?
Right. That was also in that
Same
area, right? But this was a different event. What you're talking about? That's also an important event.
What do you mean, a rock is split? How's that possible?
Made a river from the rock.
What he means to say is that the water came out, right? There was a spring that came out of the rock. That's what happened. It's a different story. Some other time we'll talk about that
Moses,
right issue.
laid his staff on and it cracked or something.
Right. So says Zohar Kadosh that the women are not a part of it. So how do they? By the way, the women, it's an amazing thing, right? The women are not a part of several mitzvot that we do. For instance, like they don't put on tefillin, they don't put on tzitzit, they don't say kriyat shema. They don't have to. There's a lot of mitzvot that they don't have to do. The women, they're absolved from a lot of mitzvot, right? Why is that? What's the reason why? Because they're right, exactly. They're busy with the home. They have to take care of the home, right? The children and all these things. Exactly. That's the idea. Children is very, very, very important. So therefore, they're absolved from many of the mitzvot. But nevertheless, right? You shouldn't think that they don't get credit for them. They do.
For what the other mitzvot?
Right. Even the ones that they don't do, they get credit for that too. How is that? Because they help their husbands to do it. When you help your husband to do the mitzvot, you got credit for it like you did it yourself. Or let's say you helped your son to do it, or you helped your father, right? Whatever it is, any of these scenarios, a person right helped one of these, so it's considered to be like he did it himself. So therefore, they say that women get more. It says right, something amazing. The women get more reward than the men do.
Because we're
Kind of like welfare.
Because we're guiding the men into the right direction.
That's also true, but you know why they get more reward? Look how it turns out, right? They say that the women, now, like men study Torah, right? Studying Torah is the biggest mitzvah that there is. Nothing bigger than that. So the women don't really have a mitzvah to study Torah. They're not really obligated, to study Torah. They only have to study the parts that apply to them. What does that mean? The laws that they have to keep. Kosher kitchen, this, kosher that, how to go to the mikveh, how to do this, all kinds of things. They have to learn these laws because it applies to them. But when it comes to the laws that don't apply to them, they don't have to learn those things. So the real study of Torah is only applicable to men, really. That's the idea, in a general sense, right? But nevertheless, they get more reward than the men do. What does that mean? That if there's one lady, right, she helped her father to study Torah, she helped her husband to study Torah, and she helped also her son to study Torah. So she gets 3 times more reward than the man does, because she helped 3 people. Can you imagine? So you see from there, right, that the women also have a big stake in all this. They have a big,
Don't have to do much, but gain a lot.
Right, that's the idea, So you see, right, again, the theme comes back, right, that our women are the pillars of the Judaism. If without them, we're nothing. We're not worth anything. That's the way it is.
I can see that.
Yeah, they're the ones who hold us up. Otherwise, we're standing on on shaky ground.
The mother,
You know what I mean?
my
That's
mother
the
was
idea.
always the one that had the family run, do
That's the idea.
the way
That's
it's
the idea.
supposed to be.
When there's one good woman in the house, the whole house runs good. Ertik alge kali, Sasiyari kali.
That was her
That's
job,
it.
to hold the holidays.
That's the
and all
idea.
that stuff.
She's the one who holds up everything. That's the idea. But nevertheless, right, regarding this mitzvah, they're not a part of it, right? Technically speaking, they're not a part. But nevertheless, right, the men who go and they do this mitzvah, and also the women who support that, as we said, right? Behind every great man, there's a great woman. That's what they say, right? You know how it is, right? Nevertheless, says the Zohar Kadosh that the reward is very great for this. how great is the reward? That a person who does this and comes and studies Torah that night, he gets blessed with 70 blessings from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. 70 blessings he gets from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he gets put into a book of zichronot. You know what that means? Like chronicles, some kind of diary, that everybody's listed over there. So he gets and puts into that book, and therefore is considered to be like one of the most important people in the world. Something like, so he's a esteemed person, esteemed Jew. That's the idea, right? Why is that? Because he stayed up one night to learn Torah on Shavuot. That's the idea, right?
One night.
Right, exactly. One night of the year. It's not a bad deal. You should know, by the way, right, that a person has to weigh pros and cons when it comes to these things. So what do I mean to tell you? What I mean to tell you is like this, right? That
You don't sleep one night.
right, you don't sleep one night, so it's hard. It's hard to go without sleep. You know how it is, right?
You watch YouTube all night.
It's right. When you're doing something silly, it's easier. When you're doing something worthwhile, it's harder. Because then the Yetzer Hara comes in, the evil inclination comes in, tries to detract you. Derail.
Watch the Ten Commandments all night long.
You're probably better off sleeping. I'm not saying that for no reason, but explain to you why that is. Okay? I'll explain to you what I mean by that. But anyway, right, what I meant to say is like this. Now, you have, right, the men who are there, and when a person is there all night, as we said, right, the reward is very, very, very great. What I meant to say is like this now. When a person sometimes says, the Yetzer Hara tells him, why, how can you stay up all night? It's so hard. Take a rest, go watch a movie, go do, watch some cable TV, whatever, go and do some internet, surf around a little bit, check out this, check out that. What's going on Facebook, what's going on YouTube, what's going on over there. Check out all these, places. So the truth is, right, that you have to know one thing. That the Torah, as we said, like in the last lecture we mentioned, right, is the greatest thing in the world. Nothing compares to that. So one time, there was one great rabbi who came to him, a certain student, right? And he sees that he gets up every day in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 a.m., before the morning, at night. He starts to learn Torah at 4 a.m., right? No problem. He starts to use the Torah at 4, learn Torah at 4 a.m., and then at 6 o'clock, he starts to pray and so forth and so on, all these things, whatever, right? So one time the student came to this rabbi. He asked him a question. He says, Rabbi, I don't understand. How do you have, the koach, like the strength to do that? Get up 4 a.m. and start studying. Nobody else does that besides you. You're the only one who does these kinds of things, self-sacrifice like that. So he asked him, he says, what, how does that, how do you do that? What's a trick, Can you teach me also a trick? So he says, I'll teach you the trick, no problem. He says, you know what? He says, let me ask you a question. Okay. He tells him, he tells him like this, right? He tells him, listen, if you had $1 million deal to do that day, right? Business deal. You got to get up early, 4 o'clock, You got to be there at 6. If you don't get there by 6, that's it. The deal is done, right? It's over. Would you do it? Would you get up? He says, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So he tells him like this, says, for me, Torah is like $1 million deal. That's why I get up every day to study Torah. You understand? I consider it to be as important as $1 million deal or more. Obviously more, right? That's the idea. But the point is, right, that a person has to know, if he knew the value of how much Torah, is worth, he would consider it to be like, for sure, $1 billion deal. That's the idea, There was also another rabbi, Ramosha Feinstein, also there was something similar. They say he also used to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. He used to start studying Torah. So his wife used to tell him, the Rebbetzin, come and say, Moshe, why are you studying so much? Wait, sleep a little bit more, a couple of more hours. You need to have your health. You're a senior citizen. You got to watch your health. Don't go too far. Don't be a fanatic. Whatever. Don't go too far. So you know what he answered her, right? His wife. He said to the rabbi. He answers her. He says, what do you want me to stay Am Haaretz all my life? He says, I cannot do that. So what do you mean to say Am Haaretz? What that means? A person doesn't know anything. But this rabbi was the most knowledgeable rabbi. But he told his wife, I'm going to be like, Am Haaretz all my life. You mean to say he was very humble. So this is the way it was, Ravatai, that people who are really right into Torah, you should know, by the way, in the Zohar Kadosh, this custom of studying Torah all night is considered to be a very, very great thing. Those great rabbis, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and his fellow rabbis, they didn't only do this on Shavuot, they did this every night. What does that mean? They would sleep in the first part of the night until the midnight, and then once midnight will come, they would get up and study Torah all night until the morning. That's what they would do. They say, by the way, that a person who does that, he studies Torah precisely after midnight and stays up until the morning and studies Torah in that time, the second half of the night, that the next day will be very successful to him, Chut shel chesed. You'll have kindness that accompanies him all day because of that. So a person who gets involved in Torah, he gets accompanied with kindness all the day after. So the question is, right, also there's another question, which is, what should a person study when he comes to study Torah that night? So the best thing to study is the Tikkun. What does that mean? There's a special program that they have, according to the Kabbalah, that they study that night. So a person should try to do that program. What does that mean? It's a little bit of Bible, a little bit of prophets, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, everything. Mishnah, Gemara, Rambam, Zohar, this, that, everything, right? They split it up into different pieces. So if a person does it this way, he does a special tikkun, so this is considered to be like the best way, to do that night, right? It's all listed in the books over there. Everything is well listed. So a person should try,
A little placating Satan.
A person should try to do this, to study Torah all night, and if he succeeds, right? They say that this is a good sign for him all year. He'll be like in a good position spiritually all year because of that. It's something which accompanies him all year. It's an amazing thing, right? This whole issue of studying Torah on Shavuot night. But this we only do on the first night, not on the second night. The second night, that's it, right? It's already, you can just be normal, whatever. You can do whatever you usually do, right? If you usually do like that again. But if you don't usually do like that, whatever it is that you do. Whatever it is, right? The second night. But the first night is the night that we have to actually do this, right? Why? Because the first night, that's the night that we receive the Torah. Not the second night. Second night is just right? It's rabbinical.
Fall off the shelf and hit you in the head and wake you up.
Right? So a person, if he knew the value of what this means, right, to do this tikkun, a person would jump really, really fast to do it. He would, he wouldn't hesitate to do such a great tikkun like this. So what's the best way, by the way, to accomplish this tikkun? You know what the best way is? Since it's very hard for people to stay up all night, right? They can hardly even stay up half a night, right? Sometimes. So you know what the way is? The way is to sleep the day before a little bit in the afternoon. Take a nap, 2-3 hours, right? Chacham ena berosho. Once he takes a nap the day before, so then he won't so readily fall asleep the night after because he'll already be rested. That's the idea, So a person has to look forward a little bit to see how to facilitate this, right? This whole mitzvah. How does he facilitate? By sleeping the day before a little bit. Which is going to be on Shabbat. So on Shabbat he should take a nice long nap, 2-3 hours, and then the night he won't be sleepy anymore, right? So he won't be so queasy. That's the idea, right? Also you have to drink a lot of coffee, 1, 2, 3 coffee, tea, all kinds of caffeine, all kinds of tricks, right? Put some cold water on your face, book, splash. Go out and take a walk a little bit, right? Walk in, get some oxygen, get some fresh air. Whatever it is that a person can do that night to stay up, you should try to do. But let me tell you just one condition, right? The condition is like this. And if you're staying up that night, you should only stay up for one thing, right? For Torah. Not to play around and mess around, and to be like a little kid. What does that mean? To go around the street, joking around, hanging around with your friends, how they do, right? On Yom Kippur, those guys, they go out there. You know what I mean? So you don't want to be from that crowd, because it would be better if you sleep then, because why? Because now you're losing in both cases, right? You have no Torah, and also you have no sleep. So you're losing from both sides. You know what I mean? They say, by the way, that there's a saying in Hebrew, in Torah, it says, right? Yoshev batel ki Hashem dameh. You know what that means? That a person who's sitting idle and doing nothing is considered to be like he's sleeping. So what does that mean? There's no advantage to a person who is just doing nothing as an idler than the person who's sleeping is about to sleep. At least you're resting. Now you're losing from both sides. So therefore, right, a person should stay up in order to learn Torah, not to mess around, and hang around, hang out, do this hangout thing, It's not about hangout. If you're making your body suffer to stay up all night, might as well get some advantage out of it. Might as well get some reward. What's the point just to hang around and do nothing? That's the idea. You know what I mean? This is the so a person has to take advantage of that, right? He has to utilize and this situation, and don't waste time. because this is considered to be, right, a very big event. There's a very big spiritual opening. Channels of Torah are open that night. This is the idea, you know? So therefore, a person shouldn't just, take that time and waste it on, all kinds of nonsense, hanging around, eating khachapuri, lobuani. No, Yossi. Right? You can eat if you're hungry. You can eat.
What? How much was that lox?
Uh,
With cream cheese? With cream cheese. Yeah.
So the idea is like this, right? A person can eat, but only to stay up, to keep himself awake. Not just to now, hang around and take pleasure, all kinds of pleasure. A person should be now involved in Torah that night. That's the idea, right? So this is it's not an obligation of what I'm telling you. This is not an obligation, but it's considered to be a very big tikkun, a very big segula. So a person should not pass it up, right?
Davening.
Yeah, try, the best that you can. As we said, right? You gotta. Also, there's an issue of conditioning your body. There's a biological clock. What does that mean? That if a person does something for a few days, his body gets used to it. There are people who like to work the night shift. You know what I mean? How do they do that? In the daytime they sleep. Why? Because their body's used to that. Now their body considers the daytime night and the nighttime day. This is what happens, you understand? So the same thing over here. A person has to shift his biological clock sometimes a little bit in order that he should be ready for such an event like that, right? Which is considered to be the greatest, right? These three holidays, by the way, all three of them, Pesach and Shavuot and Sukkot, all of them are super, super great. And this is exactly the reason why we mentioned, right? On Tuesday night, we said that a person who doesn't keep these holidays and ignores them, treats them like a weekday, he has no portion in the world to come. Because these holidays are very great. They're spiritually very, 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 very potent, very powerful. That's the way it is. Okay, you got the idea. So let's go a little bit now to Pirkei Avot, Rabotai. Right? Let's discuss a little bit something here. Something amazing. I want to tell you an amazing story. It says in the Pirkei Avot, in the fifth parak, Mishnah Yud-Chet, Kol hamzaket harabim en chet bal al yado. It says, right? Whoever gives zechut, merit, to the community, no sin comes to his hand. You know what that means? That if a person always is worried about his fellow Jew, that he should do mitzvot, to tell him, oh, do this mitzvah here, try this one, do this one. He's always helping people to do mitzvot. So you know what happens when a person is like that? Is a good, goody two shoes, a good doer, this kind of guy. You know what I mean? Right? That's good to be like that. When it comes to Judaism, right? We're talking about, not for the other stuff. Yeah, tefillin, right? Exactly, one of those guys, right? If you are helping Jews to do mitzvot, just like we're doing over here, right? A person who helps people to learn Torah also. This is nothing greater than that, right? So whoever gives merit to the Jewish people by helping them to do mitzvot, you know what Kadosh Baruch Hu gives them? A very great reward in this world also. In the next world, he's going to get a very, very great reward. But here also in this world, what's the reward he's going to get? They say, right? Enchet bal yado. You know what that means? No sin will come to him. What does that mean? That Kadosh Baruch Hu will protect him from sinning. He won't come to do sins. Why is that? Because the merit that he does, he helps the Jews to do mitzvot, protects them. It's like a shield. This is an amazing thing. Yeah?
Rabbi, can I give you my information?
Yes, please leave it. Leave it if you're yes. I will take it.
I left you my name on Facebook. I left you my phone number and my email.
Fantastic. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, so
God bless.
You're gonna email. You're gonna be on Facebook. Your name is gonna be.
Yeah, not it's going to be. It always is. We've been doing it for a while already.
We'll send you an email, and then you can open up.
Yeah, we're gonna hook you up. In other words, we'll hook you up. No problem.
So basically, I should break my relationship with this guy.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is
He's not Jewish.
yeah, of
Because
course.
he's not
That's not for
Jewish.
you. Jewish woman has a sanctity. Every Jewish woman is a holy soul, and you cannot give that. You cannot give your holy soul to a piece of a cat in the street. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's not the way it is, right? There are cats and there are Jews. Jews cannot marry cats.
She has to decide what she wants. Otherwise, you're going to be like me. You'll have one foot here, one foot there, and you spend the rest of your life confused.
We'll talk about it. We'll be in touch.
Yeah.
God bless you.
I'm assuming you walked in here for a reason.
No.
It's all from God. Believe it.
Yeah.
It's from all
The
Hashem.
guy that I'm in love with, he goes to shul here.
Yeah. Forget about him. It's a fantasy. I'm also in love with a lot of women.
They come here.
No,
Come
in the
here. But they don't even know.
Okay, guys, we gotta continue. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That's
we
okay.
talk about Judaism.
So,
Okay.
nice to meet you.
Nice, Rabbi.
God bless
thank
you.
Very much. So every Tuesday and Thursday.
Tuesday and Thursday we're here.
What time?
8:45 for the summer. We're doing a little bit late because it's the summer.
So it's gonna start 8:45.
Right. God willing. God bless.
Thank you.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you.
So, anyway, Rabbi, as we getting back to what we said, a person who does mitzvot like that, he does helps the Jews to do mitzvot. No sin comes to him. That's the idea, right? When it comes to a person, just the opposite, right? כל המחצית הרבים אין מספיקים בידו לעשות תשובה. Also, we have the opposite way, which is what? Whoever causes the Jews to sin, they don't allow him to do tshuva anymore. Can you imagine? They block him. You know, it's like you get blocked on Facebook. You know, somebody blocks you, or you block somebody else, right? You're blocked. That's it.
Can I ask you the ultimate question?
Yeah.
If this is true.
Yeah.
Back when I enticed you to come to Rabbi Lazarus,
Yeah.
and it started you going.
Right.
And now here you are.
Right. So you know what? I'll tell you something. To be honest with you, that it could be that this is the reason why you're here now because of what you did then. You know, in other words, you got your reward. You
What
understand?
reward? I've been condemned all my life.
God
You know what's the reward? The reward is that you came back to the Torah, which is, you know, why is that? You brought somebody to the Torah, and Hashem brought you to the Torah also.
Yeah.
Two
That's the idea.
mitzvahs right there.
You understand? It's like what goes around comes around. You understand? This is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This is exactly the point. But you're right. You see from there, this is a very important tool. You know why? Why is it such an important tool? Because the Yetzer Hara is very tricky. It's very strong. You know, it knows how to fool you. Nobody can go up against the Yetzer Hara by himself. He needs help. He needs divine assistance. You know. So therefore, right, this is a way of shielding yourself from that. Because otherwise, you know, who can bear it? Who can tolerate such a thing like that? So the only way that a person can shield himself, right? This is one of the best ways, is to give others damadlianos, you know, jamati, damadlianos. You know, give them merits, help them, and by that way you're protected. Even though the Yetzer Hara is very strong, and it's very hard to fight against it, and therefore, right, the Kadosh Baruch Hu is giving you now a special tool to be guarded from that. There's also other tools that we can talk about. This is one of the strongest ones, right? But the truth is, right, that we see, what do we see from this, right? Or practically speaking, there are stories that are brought down regarding that, right? We're going to talk about that now, right? That so who was the one, right? Who was really the one who gave zechuyot, right, merits to the Jewish people, the ultimate merit giver? It was Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Because he gave us the Torah, right? So therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu, right, didn't allow him. He protected him, right, from all kinds of bad things, because he was the one who. So a person who gives merit to the Jewish people, he's protected, he's guarded. You know, it doesn't mean, by the way, David, you should know, it doesn't mean that he cannot do a sin anymore. What it means is that if he wants to prevent doing sins, it's easier for him. You know, he's guarded. You know, that doesn't mean he can. You know, if he wants to go and do something, they're going to stop him. Maybe they may not stop him. You know, because they cannot really stop you if you want to be a sinner. You know, they cannot stop you. And also, this applies when a person keeps doing it. You know, like continually. If he did it only one time, and then he went to the other side, so he may lose that eventually. You know, the merit. But the merit is not lost. It's never lost altogether. You should know. It's always there somewhat. Nevertheless, right? They also say, as we said, the opposite. That a person who causes others to sin, they don't allow him to do teshuvah. Right? So the truth is, right, what you asked about, this is exactly what we're talking about. Sometimes there are people who cause also people to do mitzvot. And they also cause people to sin. They have 50 here, 51, one foot over there, one foot over there, right? So then what happens then? So it's like, you know, you have two forces fighting each other. That's what it is. You know, two opposing forces going on together at the same time, in unison. So it's like, you know, 50-50. Okay, but the point is, right, that the more you give to others mitzvot and good deeds, you help them to do, right, to become better Jews, Hashem helps you more also. And not only that, by the way, He also helps your family, your children, right? People have children, you know, giving them headaches, you know how it is, right? My son, oh, you know, he's giving me a headache, this and that, you know. He's you know, Jimmy has all kinds of names for for those young guys. I don't want to mention them, right? You know, all kinds of interesting names. I don't want to mention them, right? This is not family material, right? Whatever. So it's not family. It's not rated G, right? Whatever. So therefore, I'm not going to talk about it. But anyway, the point is, right, that a person has to know that when you help others, Hashem also helps your children as well. You know why? Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu says like this: "You help my children, the Jewish people. I help your children also." You know, that's the way it is. So a person has to know, right? Everything has, comes around, goes around. There's a reaction for everything. But right, the two famous stories regarding this, right? They say about people who didn't. They caused others to sin, and because of that, they were not able to do tshuva. So we find in the Gemara Masechet Sotah over there, right, talks about two of these cases. These were two famous cases, right? Everybody knows about them. If you don't know about them, now we'll teach you, right? At least you know one of them, right, for sure. The other one I'm not sure.
Don't like it.
So the question is like this, right? The story goes that there was a prophet. His name was Elisha, right? Elisha Navi. So Elisha had a servant, like a Gabbai, like a Yasha, one of these guys, So, Gabbai. So what happened was, right, that his name was Gehazi, this guy, right? Gehazi was like a slippery guy, one of these like shady characters. You know what I mean? Not exactly kosher. You know what I mean? One of those shady guys. So what happens is, right, that one day he did a big sin, Gehazi. What did he do? Right? It's a story, right, which is brought down in the Book of Kings. So there was a mighty man, right, who was the chief general, right, the chief of staff of the nation of Aram, which is like Syria. In that time, in those days, it was called Aram. So they were always at war with Israel. These two nations, right, always going back and forth with each other. Israel, Aram, blah blah blah. Now this one wins. Now that one wins. Going back and forth, blah blah blah, going back and forth. So what happened was, right, there was one general. His name was Naaman. Right, this guy Naaman, he got a disease. Which is like some kind of like a leprous kind of thing, right? Tzarat. Right, some kind of thing like that. Something similar to that. So what happens is, right, that he needs to heal himself. And the doctors can't heal him, So what happens is, right, that he goes to the king of Aram, that's his boss, right?
Yeah.
He goes to him and he says, Your Honor the king, can you please, find me somebody to heal me? Maybe you can find some kind of a holy man, some kind of prophet or whatever. So he tells him, no problem. He says, you know what? He says, in Israel, there's a prophet over there. His name is Elisha. I'm going to call the king of Israel. I'm going to give him a call, right? I'll send him a WhatsApp, I'll send him a text message. I'll tell him you're coming over there, and he should take you over there. Somebody should escort you over there to the prophet. And the prophet will heal you. Don't worry. He tells him like this, right? So he tells him, okay, king, you're Honor the king. I'll go. No problem, right? So what happens is, right, that he travels all the way to Israel. And he brings over there like entourage of people, also some possessions, some wealth, silver, gold, all kinds of things to pay him. He thought that he's going to have to pay for that, right? Nothing, no free lunch, right? That's the idea. So what happens is, right, that he goes and he comes to the house of the prophet. So he starts knocking on the door. Ding, ding, ding. Tuk, 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 tuk. Who is it? Oh, I'm the king sent me over here, right? My name is Naaman. I'm a general. I have this disease called Tzarat. Can you help me, right, Mr. Prophet? Right, Mr. Prophet, can you help me? So the prophet tells him. He says, "What's your problem?" He says, "Oh, I have Tzarat." Oh, okay. So he says, "Okay, fine, no problem." So he tells him. He says, he doesn't even like open the door. He tells him like through the door, kind of like in a rude manner, whatever. He tells him. He says, you know what? Go to the Jordan River and dunk yourself 7 times over there. That's what he told him, right? So Naaman hears this, right? This answer. So he says, Jordan River. He says, what is this? What is this man talking about? He says, we have in Syria much better bodies of water than the Jordan River. Jordan River is like, it's very muddy water there. It's not so clear. It's not good quality water. You can't even sell it right, on the market. You can't even sell that stuff in the market. It's not good enough. It's flimsy water, right? Very, very, very cloudy, turbid water. Who needs water like that? That's going to heal me, he says. I have better water in Syria. So his servant, right, turns around and tells him, he says, Your Honor, the general, he says, don't worry, he says, the prophet knows what he's talking about. not what you think. It's not something physical. It's something spiritual is telling you. Go and try it and see. You have nothing to lose. Right? Worst comes to worst, you're going to have to dry off with a towel, What's the big deal? What's it to you, So he says, oh, okay, I'll try, what can I do, That's what he said. I'll try it out. We'll see how it goes. So he goes to the Jordan River, right? Try it, you like it, right? So he goes to the Jordan River, and he dunks in there 7 times, Comes out like a baby, all clean and happy, healed, right, 100%, right? Newborn, newborn Jew, right? Whatever. He wasn't Jewish, but he converted in the end, by the way. He converted. So what happened was, right, that he was in shock, He was like, oh, can't believe that. I was like totally healed in 2 seconds. So he comes back to the house of the prophet again. He starts knocking on his door. Tuk, 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 tuk. Yes, who's that? Right? Oh, Mr. Prophet, thank you very much. Right? I came back to thank you that you healed me from my leprosy. He says, you know what? Now I want to give you a gift because of that, right? So he had like a couple of wagons full of silver, and all kinds of precious things there, clothing, all kinds of stuff, right? So he says, I'm going to leave you all my stuff over here, all the stuff that I brought. I want to give you a nice big fat gift, nice. Make you wealthy, make you happy, because you saved my life. So the prophet Elisha answers him. He says, thanks, but no thanks. Right? I don't want your silver. I don't want your clothing. Go back home, enjoy yourself, right? Have a good life and enjoy, right? Call too, right? All the best, right? Sweet dreams, right? That's there, right? Nice trip. So okay, so he's in shock, right? Wow, this guy's not a businessman. I thought he was a businessman today, right? You know how it is, right? Some people are businessmen. So he says, no, this guy's not a businessman. He doesn't want my money. So he starts to go home. He says, oh, fine, okay. He doesn't want. What can I do? Can't force him. Starts to go back. So meanwhile, right, who catches this whole story? Who's the one who's watching behind behind the door? Gehazi, the servant, the gabbai of Elisha, the prophet, right? So what happens is, right, that comes now Gehazi and starts to run after this general. Runs after him. So he catches him on the road. He says, wait. He says, wait, Mr. General, right? Wait, don't go any further. I have something to tell you. So he turns around, says, who? Oh, yeah, I remember you. Says, you were at the house of the prophet, no?
Boy.
Yeah. You were at the house of the prophet. So he says, yes. He says, you know what? He says, the prophet sent me, Elisha. He said, we need some money. We're short on cash right now. We need some money for our students, our disciples. We got to buy them some things. So he says, you know what? Can you give us a little bit something, a little bit, hold us over, a little bit, some, right? Some comfort money, right? Whatever, right? Give us some stuff.
No
So he says, no problem. He says, he stops, opens up the wagon, right? Gives them all the stuff, right? Unloads, a lot of stuff. Gives him, he says, you take this back to the prophet. He says, no problem. Right? Okay, so he got away with it, right? So far, right? So far, so good. But it didn't end up so good like that, right? What happens like this, right? Now he comes back home, right? And Elisha sees him, right? Sees Gehazi. So what happens is like this, right? He sees Gehazi and he tells him, he says, where did you go? Huh? Where'd you go? I missed you, huh?
Cleaned up my skin.
What happened? Where'd you go? So he tells him, he says, we had just, we had a PTA meeting, at the school, we had to go, my children, I had to go, no problem, I just came back right away. So it's PTA, huh? So what did you do? You went over there and you cashed in, huh? That's what I tell them. You cashed in. Oh, nice. So he says, now I'm going to put a curse on you, right? Why? Because right? I wanted to sanctify the name of God, and I'm not going to take any money for that. And now you're making me look like a businessman, right? Shame on you. So he tells him, I curse you that you should now, that disease that he had, it should come on you. So what happened was, right, that he got that disease now.
Who are you talking about?
Gehazi, the servant. Yeah, right. So now he got the leprosy. Understand? Came on him. So now he had to separate himself. In those days, right, the people who had that disease, they had to separate from the camp. They couldn't, right? They couldn't be with the people.
Yeah.
They had to separate.
Very dangerous.
So what happened was, right, that now all of a sudden,
Yes.
Elisha, right, curses him and throws him out. So he kind of feels bad, you know. He says, maybe I was too rash with the guy, you know. I should have been more gentle, you know, whatever. So he tries to go back and bring him back, you know, to bring him back. He regretted what he did, somewhat, you know.
Servant.
Yeah. No, the prophet.
The prophet.
Yeah. He cursed him, you know. Cursed.
The other guy.
He was too harsh. So he went and he found him. You know where he was?
No.
He was in Damascus, in Syria, right?
Oh, okay.
What was he doing over there,
Problem.
right? He wasn't working for the Mossad, trying to assassinate somebody. That's not the idea, right? He was he opened up a church over there. You understand? He opened up a church, you know, Avodah Zarah, you know, idolatry. So what happened was, right? He comes to him. He comes, Elisha.
A lot of trouble coming.
Right, he comes to him and he says, you know what? He says, Gehazi. He says, I feel so bad, you know, that I threw you out like that. Come back, he says, I'll take you back to the yeshiva, you know. Forget about the church business. Come back, you know. We'll be friends again.
Okay.
You'll be studying with me Torah. You'll be under my wings, right? I'll guide you. So he tells him, he says, Rabbi, he says, I'm sorry, but he says, I cannot do that.
I'll take my punishment.
Right? So Elisha asks him, he says, why can't you come back? What's the problem? Come back. So he tells him, he says, no, he says, Rabbi, but you taught me I cannot do that. When did I teach you that? He says, you taught me that a person who causes others to sin, they don't allow him to do teshuvah. So I already cause people to sin. I opened up a church, you know, I'm causing people to do idolatry. So he says, therefore I cannot do teshuvah anymore. The gates of repentance have been closed for me.
Okay.
So therefore he couldn't come back. That was the idea, understand?
An outcast.
That's what happened to him. So we see, right, this is a true story that corroborates what we just said. There's also another story, right, which is brought down there as well. What's the story? The story is, right, that there was, in the Second Temple era, right, this is in the First Temple era. Now let's go to the Second Temple era, right? Something very similar happens over there. What happens over there? We have somebody, right, called, a rabbi called Yoshua ben Prachia. So Yoshua ben Prachia was one of the great rabbis of the generation. And who was his Talmid? Who was his disciple? Yeshu, right? Yeshu in Machshemo, right? Was a disciple of Yoshua ben Prachia. Can you imagine?
Yeshua?
So, what happens is like this, right? That Yeshu was a yeshiva boy.
Oh,
Can you imagine? He was a yeshiva boy, yeah.
Oh,
So-
Yeshu comes to the.
Yeah,
To
I
the-
see.
Now you woke up, David.
He brings up
Before you were sleeping.
No, I wasn't sleeping.
brings up Jesus.
Snoozing.
Jesus.
Snooze function.
Yeshua is in our Torah. What do you think?
So what happens like this, right? That Yeshu was the Talmid of Yoshua ben Prachia. So they went on a trip to Egypt, right? He had to go to Egypt for some, mission or whatever.
Where are you reading from now?
Where am I reading from? This is from the Talmud, Masechet
It is
Sotah.
from the Talmud.
Yes.
It's mentioned in the
Yeah,
Talmud.
Right.
King James.
So what happens is King James. So what happens is like this, right? That he's going to Mitzrayim, and now they're coming back. They already finished coming back to Israel. So on the way, there's a hotel over there. Motel. Little Holiday Inn. Holiday Inn, whatever. Right, exactly, right. So they go in there and they lodge for the night. They had to stop over.
With the donkey.
It was a trip. So they stopped over there. So the innkeeper of that hotel was a Jewish lady. She was the one who was running the hotel. So she was very good. She knew how to cook. She knew how to do everything. Service, good food, nice. Wining and dining. All kinds of stuff. So in the end, right, in the morning, they're about to leave. So Yoshua ben Parachia turns to Yeshu, and tells him, he says, look at this lady. He says, isn't it wonderful what she did? Like how she, provided for us and served us. And, isn't she a wonderful lady, this lady? Huh? What do you think? Huh? She's the best, no? So Yeshu tells Yoshua ben Parachia, he tells him like this. He says, yeah, but he says, her eyes are like round like an owl. She looks like an owl.
He didn't find her attractive.
Who?
So Yoshua ben Parachia looks at him and says, he didn't realize, right, what was going on. Well, there was a misconception over here, right? What was the misconception? There was a misunderstanding. Yeshu thought that Yoshua ben Parachia was talking about the beauty of the lady. She was praising the way she behaved towards them, the service that she gave them. And he thought that she was talking about her looks, her beauty, whatever. So he looks at her, So now Yoshua ben Parachia looks at Yeshu. Tells him, he says, you're checking out girls, huh? You're checking out if she's beautiful or not. She's a married woman. You're not allowed to check her out like that. They say in the Gemara that a person who checks out married women, even though he doesn't do nothing, just checked her out. For that also he goes to Ginam, Shem Menachem, right? Even if he has a lot of Torah, he studied a lot of Torah, he was a big scholar, biggest scholar of the generation. Nevertheless, if he checks out married women, and enjoys looking at them, he goes to Ginam. He's not saved from Ginam. Can you imagine? So it's considered to be.
Just like avoid it, ignore it.
No. You can. It's a very good question what you're asking. So what's the answer? The answer is like this, right? That there's a story about this, by the way, that I heard about. One time, the Satmar Rebbe, who was one of the greatest rabbis in Brooklyn, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, right? He was in Williamsburg, the Satmar Hasidim, his disciples. So Satmar Rebbe, they say, one time he was invited by some lady, to stay at her house because he was, taking a trip, and she allowed them to lodge in her house, So this lady was married, whatever. They had a family and everything, whatever. So what happens is, right, that when the rabbi is walking out of the house, she told the lady, "Thank you, thank you for your hospitality, whatever." And so what happened was, right, that he looked at her, he didn't like look away like this, oh, thank you, he didn't do that. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, have a good. He didn't do like that, right? So Hasidim asked the rabbi. They said, "Rabbi, but are you allowed to look at a married woman? You're checking, like you're looking at her straight.
Don't tell nobody.
Don't tell nobody. Right? Keep it a secret, right?" So what's the answer to that question? The answer is, it really depends on what your intention is. If your intention is to enjoy looking at her beauty, this is the sin, But if you're just looking at her to talk with her, in order to convey something, it's not a sin. If you need to speak, if you need to tell her something,
it's pretty hard to.
It's hard, yeah, it's hard. But you know what it is? There's also there's also issue of derech eretz. What does that mean? You can't talk to somebody like this, Oh, hi, how are you?
Right.
The person gets offended like that. So what does that mean? That a person who's smart has a good balance. What does that mean? On the one hand, he will look straight into the person. He's not going to avoid that. But on the other hand, he's not going to look at her to enjoy. Just like on a cordial,
Right.
basis. You know what I mean? This is the idea. This is the yeah. So what happened was like this, right? That Yeshua ben Prachia kicked out Yeshu. He told Yeshu, he said, "You checking out married girls?
Beat it.
Get out of the yeshiva, right? Go take a walk. Take a hike, right? Jump into the lake. Go jump in the lake."
Get rid of your skirt.
Right? That's what he tells them, So Yeshu, right, is dejected, They say, right, that Yeshu came back 9 times to ask the rabbi to take him back. And the rabbi refused. This rabbi was a tough guy, tough cookie, Tough cookie, this rabbi. So he came back the 10th time. Can you imagine? 10 times he came back. "Please, rabbi, ask me, please take me. Don't reject me this time, So what happened was, right, the rabbi at that time already, he was already softened up, he was ready to take him already. He said, "Okay, if he's that good, came 10 times, okay, we'll go easy on the guy, we'll take him back, what can we do, So what happened was that at that time he was saying Kriyat Shema, right, like I said in the beginning, Kriyat Shema, before we started the class, right? So what happened was, right, that he was saying Kriyat Shema, and he told Yeshu like this, wait 1 second, he pointed with the finger, 1 second, I'll be with you. So he thought that Yeshu, again, right, he misread, he misunderstood what this rabbi was saying. It looks like they had a very bad communication, these two people, right? Always misunderstanding each other, right? So what happened was that Yeshu thought, he's rejecting me again, right? He didn't realize what he was trying to say, the rabbi. So he ran off, Yeshu, and he also opened up a church, right? Another church, right? He opened up. So what happened was, they say in the Gemara, that Yeshua ben Prachia in the end, right, he realized that this was, he was too rough on him. You know what I mean? It was too rough. So what happened was that he went to Yeshu to bring him back. Right? So he tells him, he says, "You know what? Come back. I'll take you back. Forget about all this nonsense. Close your church. Sell it. Sell it to right to, open up a Burlington store. Over there. Close down the church. Sell it to somebody, and let's go. Let's go back to yeshiva. Right? Let's go back. Let's go back to the good old days." So Yeshu tells him the same thing, right? That Gehazi told Elisha. What does he tell him? He says, he says, "I cannot do that." So he tells him, "Why?" Asks him why. So he says, "Because I learned from you. You're the one who taught me. You're my rabbi. You told me once a person causes others to sin, They don't allow him to do tshuva anymore. I cannot go in anymore. That's it. I'm out. Can you imagine? So you see, right, that both these disciples who went sour, right, they went on the wrong path. They both said the same thing. So this is exactly what we're saying here in the Pirkei Avot. You understand? Can you imagine? This is not just some kind of a hyperbole.
So the story behind him
Yeah.
is that he was thrown out of a yeshiva and he became a renegade.
Yeah, he became renegade. Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, that's exactly what. That's what happened. Very, very, very precise.
According to us, yes.
So what happened was like this, right? That, by the way, this is a good moral lesson for the Jewish people. You know what the moral lesson is? We also have to learn a moral lesson from this, right? The moral lesson is, don't be so quick to throw people out of the
Yeah.
yeshiva. You know?
Look at what he did.
Right, exactly.
Look
You
at
know?
what he did.
If a person is too quick,
Change the world.
if a person is too quick to do that, what happens is that this Talmid can go and destroy the world.
Absolutely.
That's what happens. So they say, right, that you know what? Even though the kid is very rowdy, and he's very disrespectful, and he's like really psycho, one of these psycho guys, very 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 nasty kid,
Jimmy.
right? Doesn't behave properly. You know how it is, right? There are some people like that.
Yeah.
We've seen them, right?
You
So,
should still try
We've
to-
seen, or maybe we were them. We've seen them. Maybe we were them also.
Do you actually take the details of this story literally?
Yeah,
Or
this is not a
do
fantasy.
you
It's not a
take
dream.
this more as a teaching?
No, it's a true story. In the Talmud doesn't talk about fantasies over there, right? It's not a fantasy book. It's not a dream book, right? Whatever.
So why is it a dilemma for some scholars if this man ever existed or not? If he's actually mentioned.
So that's a very good question, by the way.
Not
We're
only
asking
is he
about.
mentioned, there are details.
You know what the dilemma is? Because these people who are these scholars that you call them scholars, right? They're actually dopes and dummies. Why? Because they don't accept the tradition. We have a tradition regarding these things.
So
They don't accept it.
You believe that
This
he
is the problem.
existed?
What kind of question is that? What
What is
do you think? I'm one of those dopey scholars?
No, but you said that even the Pope challenged his existence.
He's also dope. There's another dope. What do you think? He's also dope. So what can you do, right?
He does dope.
He does dope. Okay, whatever. I don't know,
Mark,
but
can
right?
you take the rabbi home because I have to walk?
So don't worry about that, guys. So anyway, about that. Getting back to what we said, right? We learn from here a very big moral lesson. There are, by the way, many students like this amongst the Jewish people who are very flimsy, and they're easy to push out because they're very nasty. They have bad manners. They're very silly. They like to do all kinds of games,
But we should
play
hesitate.
all kinds of stuff.
We should hesitate because
Right.
can
They
turn
say
on you.
no matter what, even if a person is very flimsy, unless it's something very drastic, like the person
So
is.
it's
you
not
know,
all
yeah.
his fault.
Okay, so yeah, you know what it is? I'll tell you something.
He was you remember what they did to Pilchasi? They threw Pilchasi out, and Pilchasi had no choice. He started his own thing down there in 100. And we used to go to him. You remember? We used to go to him on the
It's a good
Holy
point what
Day.
you're asking. You know what it is? I'll tell you something. It's not that it's not his fault. It is his fault. But there was also something there for us
Yes,
to learn.
yes.
You understand?
Yeah, we could have sheltered.
There was a shortcoming there.
We could have sheltered.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, by the way, we have to learn that from the future. That if a person has these kind of situations today, don't be so quick to throw people
Do
out.
you think that the moral of this,
Yeah.
that one of the reasons he was going around and causing trouble, whatever, but teaching forgiveness and whatever, is because he was basing it on what they did to him?
Yeah, it was a reaction. It was a reaction kind of
When he
thing.
was walking around and teaching forgiveness,
Right.
that we should forgive,
But you see, the thing is like this, right? Even if
So what they did
let me
to
tell you
him-
something interesting, right? That even if you throw somebody out, right? If he's a good person, that person, he won't become bad because it's not his nature,
Right.
Like Pinchas, he didn't open up a church; he opened up a shul.
You opened up
You know what I
a
mean?
school, yeah.
That's something else.
Yes.
That's acceptable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you go open up a church, that's something else. That's a different
Well,
story.
he
You know what I
didn't
mean?
open up a church.
That's what it was. It was Avodah Zarah. It was Avodah Zarah.
He
Yeah.
opened
Heresy,
up a synagogue.
heresy.
No.
Reform synagogue. That's how you open up.
There were no
That's how it was.
churches back then.
There was Avodah Zarah, Avodah Zarah, houses of Avodah Zarah. When I say church, I mean, idolatrous house. That's what I mean to say. That's what they call it today.
But wasn't he teaching Torah there?
Torah, twisted Torah, like,
What did he
morally.
exactly say? He said, let's abolish this, let's do this.
He was a heretic, you know.
Let's stop.
You want to talk about heresy? What he was saying? That we don't need to talk about, right? We don't have to talk about heresy. That's not our discussion. But the point is, Rabotai, that we're not here to discuss heresy, right? We're not even allowed to do that.
But
By the way.
there's
We're not allowed to study
another-
that.
but Rabbi,
You
there's
should know,
a-
by the way, it's not permitted to study heresy.
But there's
Yeah.
another side to the story where he actually taught Torah, but what happened was it was misconstrued, and 300 years later, after they killed him, his followers came up with their own reformed idea.
That's not really true what you're saying.
That's not true.
He himself,
He himself is
he turned himself into a god. He was a narcissist, and he turned himself. He godified himself.
Jews like to believe
Yeah.
that
It's not true.
he didn't try to amend the Torah. That Peter and
This is
Paul,
John, but this is against the Torah what they're saying. You understand? It's a falsehood. It's not true. He himself was the cause of the problem. He was the cause of everything. He was the one
The
who.
thing was, his followers were the ones that wrote these stories.
That's the way it always is. That's the way it always is. But he was the instigator. He was instigator. He was instigator. He was a bad boy. You know? You should know, by the way, the disciples always go like their teacher. Whatever their teacher teaches them, if he teaches them Torah, they also teach Torah. If they teach them garbage, they always comes up garbage.
But
That's what it is.
Let me ask you something else.
That's the way it is.
It's not like he went around telling people to commit evil things.
He did. He calls people to sin. He calls people to get away from Judaism. He was. There's no bigger sin than that, right? To tell people the Torah doesn't apply anymore. There's nothing bigger than
But
that.
remember,
That's why they killed him.
But remember
Yeah.
years ago you
Yeah.
told me that
Yeah.
it's not indisputable that he probably did try to teach love and forgiveness.
Yeah, but you can see teaching love and forgiveness and being a heretic is not really, it's not really a solution. You know what I mean?
I got
This is like a false kind of, false love. It's false, piety. This kind of thing. You understand? So anyway, Rabbi, we learn from here one important thing, that a person has to be very, very careful. There's a modern day story about that, by the way. You know what the modern day story says? They say, right, that this guy Trotsky,
Trotsky.
you remember him, the communist? That's also the same thing by him. That there was he was a yeshiva boy,
Trotsky.
He was studying
I don't like
yeshiva,
Trotsky.
and they threw him out,
I don't like Trotsky.
and that's why he became a
He's a
communist.
troublemaker.
Yeah, he was a troublemaker. Yeah, but you see, also him here, the same thing happened there. The reason why he became a communist is because he was thrown out of the yeshiva. So people have to be very, very careful, not to
Yes, but then
not
again,
to do
take a
that.
look.
Yeah.
Take a look. You have kibbutz. Kibbutz is communism, pure communism.
Right, but you see, the basis of all this was, the ones who founded these things, right? They're the ones who made all these problems, creating these false ideologies. So therefore, right, if a person wants to prevent people from going in the wrong direction, there are some Jews who are very unstable. If you push them too much, they'll get lost. They say, right, that the Zohar Kadosh tells us, because of that, tells the teachers of the Zohar Kadosh, if you know a Jew, right, who's not a righteous Jew, he's a wicked Jew, he's not very, very wicked, but he's not a righteous person. They say, don't let him go, hold on to him, hold on to the guy. Don't let him just run away. You know why? Because if he runs away, he's going to be much, much worse than he was going to be with you. If he's going to stay with you, he'll have something to hold him back. If he runs away, he'll be 10 times, 100 times worse. This is exactly what happens with people like this. You understand? Once you let them go, they become worse and worse. They degenerate, right, and they degrade themselves until it goes to the bottom, right, with no there's no way to come back anymore. There's no return, right? It's a point of no return. They go to. Why does that happen? Because they say, right, that a person, says the Zohar Kadosh, teaches us that a person who's wicked, don't let him just run around free. Go free. No, hold on. We're talking about if you're a person who can do that, right? You're a rabbi, you're a scholar, whatever. You have the power to influence him, right? Because if you're not on that level, he can also influence you badly. So better maybe to let him go. But if you have the power to hold him, that you have the wherewithal to do that spiritually speaking, so a person should try to hold him. Why is that? Because you're preventing him from doing something, degrading into something worse. That's exactly what the Chazal say, right, about Avraham Avinu. That all the while that Lot was with Avraham Avinu, right? He was a fairly decent person. Once he left Avraham Avinu and went on his own, right? He totally degraded himself, degenerated, right, and became the worst of the worst. So again, right, we see the same thing. That when you let the wicked go, and let them go by themselves, by the way, sometimes there's no choice. Sometimes you have to let them go because they become so extremely bad. If it goes like that, so extreme, They start to do things which are, intolerable already, things which are not able to tolerate. And they can also spoil other people, ruin other people. Also, they can influence badly other people. A rotten apple. If a person is a rotten apple, he's going to influence other people. So there we have to let him go sometimes. But if it's not like that, a person has to use his judgment, right? The rabbi has to use judgment on that, right? To what degree is this person bad? If he's that bad, that he's going to destroy everything, we should let him go then. But if he's not that bad, we can still hold on to him a little bit and, try to coax him a little bit, rub his shoulder, nurture him a little bit, we can do something, we can save whatever we can save. So we should try to do that, right? Don't let him go, because if you let him go, he's going to become, right, another Gehazi, another Yeshu, another Trotsky, right? We don't need another one of those. You understand? That's the idea. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen, amen. Thank you for coming. Have a good night. God bless. All the best. All right.